Okay, let's dive in. That mortgage, right? Those car payments, this relentless pressure to provide, is this really the life you designed for yourself?
Or is it more like you're just living in a house someone else built, following a blueprint handed down, brick by anxious brick, by a society that seems, well, terrified if anyone steps off the perfectly kept lawn?
It's fascinating, isn't it, how those external blueprints,
Yeah.
they get inside. We start thinking that societal wallpaper is the actual structure of what we want.
Yeah, exactly. And we end up living these lives that honestly would probably impress strangers more than they actually fulfill us deep down.
Okay, imagine this just for a second.
Hmm.
Imagine sudden blindness sweeps the world. Status symbols,
Yeah.
invisible. Poof. No one sees the corner office, the fancy watch, the right school badge on your kid's blazer.
Huh, interesting.
Stripped bare, right. No external validation. What would you actually want to do with this, brief flicker of existence? What hidden passions would suddenly scratch at the surface?
That really gets to a core tension, doesn't it? This massive gap between, like, our authentic selves and the identities we kind of perform for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the bit of Socrates, the whole unexamined life thing. Are we really living? Or just playing a role we've been assigned?
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
Chasing job titles that just tasted like dust,
Mhm.
honestly.
Yeah.
All for some phantom prestige.
We all have, I think, to some extent.
And wanting stuff, possessions, that give this quick hit of satisfaction, but then PFD, gone. Replaced by the hunger for the next thing, the next upgrade.
And that digital scroll of envy, seeing what everyone else has, judging, we all feel that pull, don't we? Even when we try to pretend we're above it all.
Totally.
It taps into something deep, that drive for belonging. Maybe it's a bit Jungian, like an archetype. But
Yeah.
the danger is when that drive completely smothers our individuality, when we just follow the herd.
We risk becoming alienated from ourselves, our actual nature.
Precisely.
And we talk a big game, don't we? Authenticity. Live your truth. But then look around. So many of us are chained to jobs that just drain the life out of us.
Yep. Funding lifestyles dictated by, what, fleeting trends, the resale value of our house.
Is that freedom? Or is it just like a really nice looking cage we built ourselves?
And consumer culture just loves that gap, that dissonance. It's constantly whispering, happiness is just over there, in that next purchase, that next promotion.
Keeps us chasing. Always
It's
chasing.
a cycle, right?
Manufactured desire. Designed to keep us striving, never actually satisfied.
So today is May 12th, 2025. Just look around any big city. That relentless striving, the packed trains, this constant hum. It feels like ambition, maybe? Or is it frenzy?
It's intense. We call it the middle class climb. But what if? What if it's less about chasing happiness and more like a massive collective coping mechanism for anxieties bubbling just underneath?
Could be. Could this whole striving thing be a kind of misdirected will to power, like Nietzsche talked about? Trying to prove our worth in a system that mostly values external stuff. It's a compelling thought, measuring ourselves by things outside ourselves.
So what if you just stopped? Said no more upgrades, no to the bigger mortgage, no to climbing that career ladder that's leaning against the wall you never even picked.
What actually falls apart?
Right. Is it your finances, your actual security? Or is it just the image, the carefully built social facade?
The answer might be pretty revealing, more than we like to admit.
And saying no like that consciously, it forces a really important distinction, doesn't it? What do we actually need for our well-being versus what's just window dressing for other people?
Remember that story of the baker? Guy who walked away from some high-flying job. Everyone thought he was nuts.
Yeah, I remember hearing about someone like that. Crazy, people said. Pitied him even.
But you saw him and he just radiated this quiet joy, like he was finally comfortable in his own skin. How many of us are doing the opposite? Looking successful on paper, but feeling hollow.
Performers. Trapped in a play someone else wrote.
Exactly. Are we? His story, though, it shows the courage it takes, right? To define success for yourself internally, based on your own values, not just what gets applause.
Okay, think about the specifics. That car you drive.
Yeah.
The exact school district your kids are in. The agony over exam results. Were those choices really born from your deepest beliefs?
Or were they just echoes? Echoes of what society expects, the easy path paved with aspirations you kind of borrow?
You choosing, really choosing.
Yeah.
Or are you just complying with some unspoken script?
It's tricky because those choices feel so personal, but they often have these invisible fingerprints all over them, society's fingerprints.
Yeah.
Figuring out what you genuinely want versus what you've absorbed, that's like a lifelong job, isn't it? Constant self-checking.
And that phrase, keeping up with the Joneses, Sounds so quaint, almost harmless.
But the reality is brutal.
We're not keeping up. We're drowning in this rising tide of expectations. And everyone's pretending the water isn't, over their heads. It's not a race. It's a shared delusion.
And the problem with the comparison game is it never ends. There's always someone with more. The goalposts keep moving.
So you're always striving, never arriving. Satisfaction is always just temporary.
Fleeting, yeah.
Think back. The post-war American dream. That whole picture. Suburban house, white picket fence, shiny car. It's a powerful story, right? Carefully crafted, sold to people.
Absolutely, a potent narrative.
And today, it just looks different. It's hustle culture. It's influencer lifestyles. It's the curated perfection you see scrolling online.
Different costumes, maybe? But the underlying pressure is the same. Perform a life that looks worthy of approval.
These cultural stories, they keep changing shape, but they always seem to hammer home the same message. Happiness comes from outside, from achievements, from stuff.
Exactly. That's the consistent thread.
Okay, pause just for a second. Scan your bank statement in your head, look in your calendar. How much of your actual time, your energy, your money, how much goes into just maintaining a lifestyle that signals middle class?
And then how much is left over for nurturing, your actual soul, the quiet stuff?
That kind of audit. It can be a real wake-up call, can't it? Shows you where your real priorities lie. Are you investing in fulfillment? Or just paying dues to society? We're quick to judge, aren't we? The super rich, their excesses, or people struggling, their perceived flaws. But what about us, our own carefully managed image?
That's subtle showing off of status. The anxiety about looking successful to our peers.
Isn't that just another role in the same big play of social hierarchy? Just a different act.
Status seeking happens everywhere, across the board. The symbols change. Maybe it's a yacht for one person, a specific brand of organic kale for another, but the underlying need, recognition, belonging, that's universal. Powerful driver.
Okay, dark thought experiment. Imagine you lose it all tomorrow, catastrophically. Everything tied to your middle-class identity. Job, savings, the right address, gone. Would your relationships hold up? Would your sense of self stay solid? How much of you is actually tangled up in that costume, that facade?
That's a brutal test, isn't it? A real litmus test for self-worth. If your identity is too dependent on external stuff, losing it can cause a massive crisis. Who are you then?
And notice how middle class these days. It almost automatically brings up anxiety, doesn't it?
Yeah, that gnawing fear, falling behind, the constant comparison, how fragile financial stability feels.
It's like a class defined almost as much by shared vulnerability as by income.
That pervasive insecurity. That might be the defining feature now. Always aware you could slip down the ladder in this super competitive world.
So be honest with yourself. Do you really need that bigger place, the absolute latest phone, your kid in every single after-school class?
Or are these things driven by something else, something deeper? Maybe a craving for validation from others, even if it stings to admit it.
It takes real work, doesn't it, to untangle genuine needs from desires that are just fueled by social pressure. It's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Rigorous self-examination, often not fun.
I struggle with it all the time.
Yeah.
This pull towards simplicity, less stuff, a quieter life. But then there's that insidious tug of the upgrade, the FOMO, the subtle pressure to keep up, it feels like. Like that internal battle is the middle-class condition.
That conflict totally reflects the fight between our basic desire for contentment, just being okay, and the constant bombardment of messages saying, more is better, always more.
A friend once said to me, sounded so tired, we spend money we don't have on things we don't need to impress people we don't even like.
Wow, that's sharp.
Cynical, maybe. But doesn't it ring uncomfortably true? Especially for the middle class. Why does that hit so hard?
Because it nails it, right? It points directly at the often irrational reasons behind why we buy things. It's about sending signals, not always about genuine value to us.
So here's a thought. Maybe the middle class isn't the backbone of society we're always told it is.
Oh, go on.
Maybe it's actually the main engine of consumer capitalism, fueled by these manufactured desires, this constant status anxiety, just keeping the whole economic machine churning away.
That's a provocative idea, a counter-narrative, that in chasing the good life, the middle class might actually be powering the very system of endless consumption. Unwittingly, maybe.
Think about the media we consume. Non-stop home renovation shows. Armies of financial gurus selling quick fixes, those perfect parenting blogs.
All selling slightly different versions of the same dream, right? The ideal middle-class life.
A target you're always supposed to be aiming for. And always feeling kind of inadequate because you haven't quite reached it yet.
And those portrayals create these unrealistic benchmarks. They make you feel like you're lacking something, which conveniently fuels the desire for products or services that promise to close that gap.
Okay, be brutally honest with yourself. Haven't you at some point chosen the safe career path over the risky passion?
Haven't you maybe bitten your tongue to keep the peace socially or professionally?
Isn't stability sometimes just a nicer word for conformity driven by fear?
It really highlights the trade-offs we make, doesn't it? Often sacrificing what might truly fulfill us for the feeling of security that comes with fitting in, following the rules.
Look at weddings these days. The sheer amount of money spent often feels less about celebrating love.
And more about putting on a show, right? Performing
Huh.
prosperity for the relatives, for the Instagram feed.
Is that tradition? Or is it more like a symptom? A societal sickness obsessed with appearances?
It definitely raises questions about the real motives behind those big displays. Are they about connection or validation?
Now imagine a complete shift. Genuine contentment with less. A decent, modest home. A reliable car. Nothing fancy. Just rejecting the whole conspicuous consumption thing.
How would society react?
Exactly. Would people applaud your wisdom, your freedom? Or would they label you a failure, unambitious, maybe even pity you?
It shows the pressure isn't just to have the right things, it's to want the right things too.
Yeah, wanting simplicity is often seen as lacking drive or something. It conflates those two things. You believe your family's future plans are rational, logical, considered. But how much of that rationality is just the echo of ads, the subtle nudge from friends, the fear that your kids won't measure up?
Dig deep on that one. What assumptions are you just accepting without questioning?
It's so important to really examine those underlying assumptions. Are they your values or values imposed from outside?
Takes conscious effort.
And every generation seems to redefine what middle-class success looks like, doesn't it? Our grandparents maybe want security above all. Our parents, perhaps ownership.
And our generation, what is it, experiences, authenticity, wellness?
This is just the same core anxiety, dressed up differently, sold through new channels.
The surface might change, the aspirations look different, but those fundamental worries about status, security, belonging, they seem to stick around, don't they? Just adapting to the times.
Here's a twist, though. What if the ultimate societal expectation isn't owning a certain thing or having a certain job? What if it's the deeply ingrained belief? The belief that this whole relentless chase will eventually lead to happiness. That the next milestone, the next run on the ladder, that's where contentment lies.
So the belief itself is the expectation.
Could that belief be the biggest lie? The most insidious one? The thing that keeps the whole system running?
That suggests the real trap isn't the stuff, the possessions, but the story we tell ourselves about the stuff. That acquiring it is the main road to fulfillment.
What if your ambitions? What if they aren't actually yours? What if your picture of a good life was just downloaded from the culture around you, not something you dug out from inside yourself?
And if you stripped away all the shoulds, all the external voices, what would be left? What authentic desires remain?
And would that feel terrifyingly empty, or would it feel liberating?
That cuts right to the core of identity, doesn't it? If our goals are mostly borrowed, questioning them can lead to, well, either a void or a chance to actually discover who we really are.
You probably still think, no, my choices are logical, based on need. I'm not influenced by social pressure.
Right.
Most of us do.
Sit with that belief for a moment. Really feel its weight. Does it actually hold up when you poke at it?
Taking that pause, doing that kind of honest check-in,
Yeah.
it can be really unsettling.
Yeah.
It forces you to see the potential gap between how autonomous you think you are.
And the reality of all those external forces shaping your decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's maybe a way to frame it. The middle class isn't some destination you arrive at, put your feet up. It's more like a role you perform, a script you follow.
And you follow it for so long.
That the lines blur. You can't tell the actor from the part anymore. Real freedom. It starts when you have the guts to actually question the script itself.
That's a powerful metaphor, the performative side of it all. And yeah, real autonomy comes from seeing that narrative, that script, and maybe deciding to rewrite parts of it.
So let's loop back, right back to the start. Are you building your life?
And if the answer isn't an immediate, slightly uncomfortable, well, maybe,
then you might be playing a much deeper role than you even realize.
that initial question, it's like a touchstone, isn't it? Something to keep coming back to. How much of my life is driven by me and how much by outside pressures?
Did any of this strike a chord? If it did, maybe share this deep dive with someone else you suspect is on that same treadmill, running hard.
Not to judge them, but just to open up a conversation. Are we striving for something real? Or just running because everyone else is running?
Asking that question together, that could be the start of something, a collective pause, maybe a reevaluation of what we actually value.
What if the greatest luxury isn't a fancy car or a big house? What if it's just freedom? The quiet, radical freedom from constantly worrying about what society expects.
And how many middle-class lives are set up almost deliberately to prevent that kind of freedom, to
Yeah.
keep you tethered.
It flips the script on luxury, doesn't it? Suggests true wealth might be internal, a state of mind, not just stuff.
Which is the bigger failure? To try your own thing, stumble, maybe fail by society's standards?
Or to succeed on paper. Take all the boxes society gives you, but feel that gnawing emptiness inside. Which failure would haunt you more? Late at night.
That dilemma, it forces you to get real about your values, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What actually makes a life meaningful? Forget the applause.
Yeah, what matters to you?
Sometimes middle-class life feels like a subscription service you never really chose to sign up for.
I like that. Just auto-renews, right? With every mortgage payment, every school fee, every purchase that reinforces your status.
And trying to cancel. The cancellation policy is intentionally designed to be complicated and scary.
That analogy really captures the feeling, doesn't it? Feeling locked in, with ongoing costs, both financial and psychological, and huge barriers to just opting out.
Imagine carrying this huge backpack, invisible but heavy. Every rock inside is labeled what others think.
You've carried it so long, the weight feels normal. Part of you.
Until maybe you glimpse someone walking without one, looking lighter. Could you actually put that backpack down, even just for a day? What would that feel like?
That image, it's so visceral. The burden we carry, often without even realizing it, and the liberation that could come from just setting it down.
Try this. Take a moment later. List your 5 biggest life goals. Then, honestly, trace them back. Where did they come from?
Did they bubble up from inside you, your deepest self? Or were they planted? By family, friends, media? Who's the real author of your ambition?
That exercise,
Yeah.
tracing the roots of our goals, it's vital for telling the difference between our own desires and the messages we've just absorbed.
Critical work. People might call you responsible, hardworking, sensible. Are those genuine compliments?
Or are they just labels? Labels for someone who's perfectly learned the rules of the game and stopped questioning them long ago.
It's like deadly praise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sounds good, but maybe it just means you're conforming really well, not thinking critically.
Yeah, a passive acceptance of things as they are.
I heard someone say once their biggest fear wasn't dying. It was getting to the end and realizing they'd lived someone else's life entirely.
Isn't that quiet dread? Isn't that simmering underneath so much of this middle-class striving, this constant busyness?
That fear hits right at the core, doesn't it? Our need for meaning, for authenticity in the short time we have.
And what's the collective cost of everyone chasing the same narrow goals, the same middle-class dream?
The impact on the planet, growing inequality, the mental health crisis we see escalating.
Does your individual chase for your dream maybe contribute to a bigger picture that's, well, not so dreamy?
That ethical angle, it forces us to think beyond ourselves. How do our personal goals fit into the larger systems? And what are the consequences?
We love the idea that hard work equals success, guarantees entry or stability in the middle class, meritocracy.
Does it really? Look around. Or is it often more about the advantages you started with? Luck, knowing how to play the game, the unspoken rules.
That myth of pure meritocracy. It's comforting, for sure, but is it actually true?
Challenging that myth means acknowledging all the other factors at play. Systemic issues, luck. It's more complex.
Look, rejecting societal expectations doesn't mean you have to go live in a cave.
Right. No, not at all. But it does mean being conscious, constantly discerning. Which expectations serve you? Which ones are just noise? Which ones do you keep? Which do you discard?
That active, mindful choosing. That's the real work. Are you doing it?
True freedom isn't total rejection. It's deliberate selection, choosing values and expectations that actually align with who you are.
Who really benefits most from you staying on that treadmill, believing it's the only way?
Financial institutions, maybe. Advertisers. Employers who like compliant workers. The government needing predictable taxpayers.
Who gains the most from you not questioning the path?
Examining who benefits? That can really shine a light on the power structures that keep these expectations going.
I used to think that whole keeping up with the Joneses thing was kind of old-fashioned, too simple for today. Now I realize the expectations just got sneakier, more sophisticated. It's not just about the car anymore. It's the right kind of ethical travel, the right kind of conscious shopping, the right kind of mindful parenting.
The game's still on, just with more complex rules, more subtle signals.
It shows how adaptable these expectations are, doesn't it? They shift from obvious wealth displays to, yeah, well, more nuanced things. Cultural capital, lifestyle signaling.
Yeah, that's
Thoreau wrote about lives of quiet desperation
Yeah.
way back when. Is the modern middle class really that different?
Or is it just the same desperation, maybe, but with better gadgets and faster Wi-Fi to distract us?
Has all our progress actually eased those fundamental human worries about meaning, about fulfillment, or just changed the scenery?
It's a deep question, a timeless one, really.
Think about a dream you had once, a path you maybe started down but then abandoned because it wasn't sensible, didn't fit the middle class picture.
You buried it, maybe told yourself it was silly.
But in quiet moments, late at night, maybe. Can you still hear it? A faint whisper? What's it trying to tell you, even now?
Reconnecting with those old, maybe discarded dreams that can tell you a lot about your authentic self before all the layers of should got piled on.
Have you ever felt trapped by your own success? The comfortable life your good job pays for?
Ah, the golden handcuffs.
Yeah, they lock you in to a life you maybe wouldn't choose again if you were starting fresh. That feeling seems incredibly common now.
It really highlights how success materially can become its own kind of trap, preventing you from seeking things that might be more rewarding on a deeper level.
Look, there's no single right way to live. Let's be clear on that.
Absolutely not.
But making the chase for external validation your main goal, that seems like a guaranteed recipe for feeling hollow, no matter how much you achieve or earn.
Because goalposts always move, the expectations always shift. You never actually arrive.
Lasting fulfillment. It has to come from inside, doesn't it? Intrinsic stuff.
Purpose.
Things that don't depend on what other people think.
It transcends that fickle nature of external approval.
Maybe you're not just performing for society today. Maybe you're also performing for a younger version of yourself.
Oh, interesting. Explain that.
You who first dreamed of this specific kind of success. Are you maybe afraid to admit to that younger self that actually maybe this isn't it? Maybe this isn't the happiness you imagined?
Confronting those past dreams, acknowledging how your values might have shifted, that's tough, but maybe necessary to live authentically now.
And if your identity is mostly tied up in your job title, your address, your stuff, what happens when those things change or disappear? Which they inevitably do for many people.
Is your sense of self strong enough, resilient enough to handle shedding that middle-class skin?
A strong sense of self has to be anchored deeper, right, in internal values, beliefs, not just in external circumstances that can change on a dime.
Exactly. More stable foundation.
You can't really break free from these pressures, though, until you admit how powerful they are, how good approval feels.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge the pull, the seductive comfort of fitting in, of being seen as successful.
The challenge isn't denying that desire exists in us. It's stopping it from running the whole show, from dictating your entire life.
Admitting that need for connection, for approval.
Yeah.
It's human. It's the first step to understanding its influence, and then maybe managing it so it doesn't control you completely.
Okay, final big what if. Imagine society suddenly flipped its values, prioritized creativity, community, genuine contentment over just income and assets.
How would the middle class even define itself then?
And more importantly, what would you prioritize differently in your own life starting tomorrow?
That really makes you think, doesn't it? What if the rules of the game were completely different? How would my choices change?
Your individual chase for the good life, based on society's current checklist, it ripples outwards. It affects your kids' values. It shapes what companies sell. It reinforces the very system you might feel stuck in.
Our choices are never just about us, are they? They're part of a bigger web. We're all interconnected. Our actions have consequences.
Decades from now, looking back, what regret feels heavier? Not getting that slightly bigger house.
Or not daring to try the path that actually called to you, beneath all the noise, the path that felt truly yours.
Thinking about your future self, potential regrets. That can be a really clarifying lens for today's choices. Put things in perspective.
Definitely. A powerful motivator.
Maybe the middle class offers both things at once. Real security, real opportunities. And it traps people in debt, Anxiety, conformity.
Well, it can be true. It's not necessarily one or the other.
Holding that contradiction, that paradox, that's maybe key to really understanding it. It's complex.
Embracing that complexity gives you a much more realistic picture, acknowledging the good and the bad, the potential and the limitations.
I have to admit, I still feel the pressure every day. That reflex to compare, to strive, to subtly signal my own status.
Me too. Anyone who says they're totally immune, they're either enlightened or maybe not being totally honest.
Acknowledging the struggle is still happening. That feels like the only honest place to start. For me, anyway.
Authenticity starts there, right?
Right.
Admitting our own vulnerability. Admitting this negotiation with society's expectations is ongoing. It doesn't just stop.
And we're all kind of complicit in keeping these expectations alive, even while we complain about them.
We judge, we compare, we signal our own status, consciously or not.
So maybe the real way out isn't just individual escape. Maybe it's more about a collective questioning, a willingness together to rethink the rules of the game.
Changing deep-seated norms, that usually requires a collective effort, doesn't it? To examine our shared values and maybe redefine them.
So let's bring it right back. That first question. Are you building your life?
And the answer isn't just yes or no. It's about the mix, isn't it? The ratio. How much is genuinely you, driven by your own core desires?
And how much is performance for that unseen audience? And maybe the biggest question, are you okay with that balance? Whatever it is for you right now.
Ultimately, maybe the goal is just alignment. More harmony between who we are inside and how we live outside. A balance between being part of society and being true to ourselves.
Society's expectations. They're really just the collected whispers of everyone else's fears.
That's good.
Try to tune out the whispers. Tune into your own heartbeat instead. What's it telling you?
That final thought really encourages shifting focus, doesn't it? From looking outside for validation to listening inside for guidance, making that your main compass.
If this whole conversation made you feel uneasy, uncomfortable, good.
Discomfort can be a signal.
Yeah, maybe it's an internal nudge telling you something needs a closer look. Revisit this if you need to. Let the ideas kind of percolate.
That discomfort, it's often where growth starts, right? Highlighting where our beliefs don't quite match our reality.
And if it resonated, maybe share it with someone you think feels that same quiet pressure but doesn't talk about it.
Could spark a real conversation, not about job titles or house prices, but about the bigger stuff, life, meaning, what we're actually doing here.
Sharing these thoughts might build connection. Create space for more honest, meaningful chats about what it means to be human beyond just the surface stuff.
Yeah, beyond the metrics.
This has been The Deep Dive. We're not here telling you how to live your life.
Absolutely not.
We're just asking.
Right.
Why? Why are you living the way you are? Go explore that question.
Or don't. The choice, perhaps. Maybe that choice is still yours.